The forest was alive with whispers. Moonlight sifted through the dense canopy, casting silver patterns on the moss-covered ground. Every leaf, every stone, every shadow seemed to hum with anticipation. In the heart of this wilderness stood the ancestral stronghold of the Northern Pack, a sprawling fortress of stone and timber centuries old, guarded by legends as old as the mountains themselves. Illyra moved cautiously, her steps soundless over the damp earth. She was not one of the pack, yet somehow, the forest seemed to recognize her presence, bending light and shadow to her favor. Her amber eyes flickered nervously, scanning the towering pines, until they settled on a figure on the balcony above, the AlphaKing. He was a vision of raw authority, with silver streaking through his midnight, black hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. Tales spoke of his ferocity, the way he could strike fear into any who dared challenge him. And yet, there was a weariness etched into his features, a weight that years of ruling, of battles fought and alliances forged, had left behind. Illyra's heartbeat quickened. She had come not out of rebellion or curiosity. She had come because the pull of fate had been too strong to ignore. The moment she first heard his voice in a dream, deep and commanding, a whisper that echoed in her soul, she had known she would cross forests, rivers, and mountains to meet him. "You are far from your territory." His voice rumbled like distant thunder, carrying both warning and intrigue. Illyra raised her chin, her resolve firm despite the tremor in her hands. "And you're far from the council," she replied, her voice steady. "Yet here we are." A faint flicker of a smile played across his lips, almost imperceptible, yet enough to make the air between them charged with electricity. The AlphaKing had been known to reject countless offers of allegiance, friendship, and even love. Many whispered that he was too old to choose a mate now, that the fire of passion had long since dimmed beneath the weight of duty. "I am too old to choose a mate," he said, his eyes narrowing slightly as if to measure her spirit. "I've seen many come and go. Few understand the burden of my position." Illyra stepped closer, her boots silent on the stone floor. She met his gaze unwaveringly, her voice dropping to a soft, intimate whisper. "I've been waiting my whole life for this moment." For a heartbeat, the wind seemed to pause. Even the nocturnal creatures of the forest stilled, as if the world itself held its breath. The AlphaKing's eyes widened just slightly, betraying the smallest flicker of surprise. A crack in the armor of centuries. "And you believe that is enough?" he asked cautiously, his tone less commanding now, tinged with curiosity rather than authority. "I know it is," she said, stepping closer, the distance between them shrinking until the faint scent of her, earthy, wild, unbroken, wafted into his senses. "Because I've felt your call even before I knew who you were." Something ancient stirred in him then, deep and primal. A memory, a whisper from his wolf self that had lain dormant beneath the years of kingship and solitude. A bond, invisible yet undeniable, began to thread itself around their hearts. For the first time in decades, the AlphaKing felt something he thought was lost to him forever. Hope. And in that hope, danger and desire waited patiently, ready to consume them both. The night deepened. Shadows shifted as if alive, and as the moon reached its zenith, the forest seemed to hum with anticipation. The AlphaKing and the mysterious Omega who dared meet his gaze were standing on the edge of something monumental, something that would challenge traditions, test their hearts, and awaken desire. Neither fully understood yet. Illyra lifted her hand almost reverently, and let her fingers brush the ornate railing. "I've been waiting," she whispered again, softer this time, so only he could hear. "Waiting to be claimed by you." He inhaled sharply, the words igniting a fire within him that he hadn't felt in years. His hand twitched, almost involuntarily, yearning to reach out, but centuries of control and caution held him back. Yet the pull was irresistible, as if fate itself had whispered into her soul to stand here, in this exact moment. A storm of unspoken emotions surged between them, curiosity, desire, caution, and something darker, something that threatened to overturn the delicate balance of power in the pack. This was no ordinary meeting. This was the moment when destiny, long in waiting, finally arrived. And the AlphaKing knew, deep in the marrow of his bones, that nothing in his long, solitary life would ever be the same again. The forest had quieted, but the air itself seemed charged, vibrating with the energy between them. The AlphaKing Darien, as few dared to call him outside the inner circle, stood rigid, his storm, gray eyes locked on Alara. Her presence was like a flame in the frozen halls of his heart, daring him to reach out, daring him to break centuries of solitude. "You should not be here," he said finally, his voice low, a mixture of warning and awe. "The night is dangerous, and the forest does not welcome strangers lightly." Alara tilted her head, a sly smile playing on her lips. "I am no stranger," she said, stepping closer. The moonlight kissed her hair, silver strands glinting like threads of starlight. "I have felt your presence long before you saw mine. I know the dangers, and I am willing." Darien's jaw tightened. Her courage, or was it recklessness, stirred something deep within him. The alpha of the northern pack was a man who ruled through strength, wisdom, and fear. He had conquered rivals, quelled rebellions, and carried the weight of his people like a mountain on his shoulders. And yet here was a mortal, a mere omega, who dared to defy him, unafraid of the king himself. He studied her face, sharp cheekbones, lips that seemed made to tempt even the coldest hearts, eyes that glowed with something primal he could not name. And beneath it all, a quiet power and innate strength of spirit that whispered to his wolf, awakening instincts long buried. "You should leave before the wolves. My own wolves sense your scent," Darien warned, his hand brushing instinctively toward the hilt of the sword at his side. Alara laughed softly, a sound that rippled through the night like warm wind. "Let them come," she said. "I am not afraid." The AlphaKing's wolf growled low in his throat, a deep vibration that only he and the wild could hear. It was a warning and an invitation. He felt the bond tighten, subtle at first, a silver thread connecting their souls, tugging insistently. Before he could respond, a shadow flitted across the tree line. His senses snapped into sharp focus. Every leaf, every branch, every creature became part of a vast web of movement. A pack intruder, a rival seeking to challenge him. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his body moving with fluid precision. His wolf surged within him, muscles coiling, instincts alive. Alara did not move away. Instead, she stepped closer still, her hand brushing his arm in a bold, electrifying gesture. "I am not afraid of you or them," she said, eyes unwavering, locking with his. Darien's chest tightened. The alpha instincts in him roared. Here was a woman who feared nothing, a mortal who matched his strength in ways he had not anticipated. And the wolf within him, ancient, untamed, and hungry, responded with a longing he had thought extinguished by time. The shadow grew closer. A pack of rival wolves emerged from the forest edge, eyes glowing yellow in the moonlight. Darien moved first, a blur of silver and black, his sword catching moonlight as he struck with lethal precision. Yet even in the chaos, his mind never left Alara. "You should have left," he growled, spinning to intercept a leaping attacker. "I'm not leaving," she called over the clash of snarls, her voice steady. She unsheathed a dagger from her belt, her movements fluid, practiced. "Not until you claim me." Darien froze. The words were both a declaration and a temptation, stirring something wild, forbidden, and irresistible. His wolf surged, instincts clashing with his careful control. Here was the moment to test the bond, to acknowledge the pull he had long denied, but to do so could ignite forces neither of them could contain. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. Rival wolves retreated into the shadows, leaving silence, broken only by the ragged breathing of the two figures standing alone in the moonlit clearing. Darien lowered his sword, his gaze never leaving Alara. She had not flinched, not yielded. She had stared into the storm that was him, and she had not blinked. "You are unlike any mate I have ever known," he murmured, voice thick with emotion he barely controlled. Most would have run or begged for mercy. Alara stepped closer, her hand brushing his chest, feeling the powerful heartbeat beneath. "I came for you," she whispered almost reverently. "Not for your power, not for your pack, for you, only you." Darien's wolf growled low and deep, a sound of warning and desire entwined. His hand rose, trembling slightly before finally resting on her cheek. The connection was electric. Flesh against flesh, spirit against spirit, destiny woven between them like fire on dry leaves. The forest watched in silence, bearing witness to the impossible. The AlphaKing, the immortal ruler feared by all, was facing a force he could not control. And that force was not an enemy, it was love. For the first time in decades, Darien felt a pull he could not resist. A claim that needed to be made, not for duty, not for tradition, but for the soul that now stood boldly before him. "Do you understand what you are asking?" He whispered, the words trembling between them. "To stand beside me to claim a place in my life, in my heart, in my pack." "I do," she replied, eyes shining, lips close to his. "And I will wait as long as it takes to be yours." The moonlight deepened, shadows dancing as if celebrating the bond that had begun. And deep within the mountains, ancient powers stirred. Secrets long buried, enemies long forgotten, and a destiny that neither the Alpha nor the Omega could fully grasp were awakening. Their story was only beginning. The dawn broke with a hesitant light, spilling pale gold across the forest canopy. Mist curled around the towering pines like a living spirit, and the air carried the scent of pine, earth, and something unspoken. Desire, tension, and the faint metallic tang of destiny. Allura sat by a stream, her reflection fractured by rippling water. Her heart still raced from the previous night. She had stood before the AlphaKing, faced a storm, and somehow survived. And not just survived, but felt closer to him than she had ever felt to anyone. Darien emerged from the tree line, silent as a shadow, his presence commanding yet almost tender. The sunlight glinted off the silver streaks in his hair, making him look otherworldly, like a being caught between wolf and man. "You're still here," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. Most would have fled after last night. Allura met his gaze unwaveringly, and missed seeing the Alpha in his natural habitat. She teased lightly, though her pulse betrayed her nerves. Not a chance. He stepped closer, the tension between them electric. The memory of her courage, her boldness, and her whispered declaration haunted him. It called to the wolf within, urging him to abandon control, to claim what had always been waiting for him. "I should warn you," Darien said, each word deliberate. "Claiming a mate is not like choosing a companion in court. Once the bond is acknowledged, there is no turning back." Allura's lips curved into a knowing smile. "I've been waiting my whole life for someone like you. I am ready, no matter what it costs." Darien's wolf growled softly in his throat, a vibration that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. It wasn't just desire, it was recognition, the primal acknowledgement that Allura was not only his mate, but also his equal in spirit, courage, and fire. Without another word, he closed the distance. The first touch was tentative, his fingers brushing hers, but it sent sparks racing through both their bodies. The air thickened, the forest itself seeming to lean closer, eager spectators to the unspoken dance of attraction. "Allura," he murmured, his voice husky, broken by emotion. "Do you understand what claiming me truly means?" "I do," she replied, her voice steady though her pulse raced. "It means danger, yes, but it also means passion, love, and loyalty beyond anything else." Darien's hand slid from her wrist to her face, cupping her cheek. The warmth of his touch ignited her from the inside out. Her breath caught, and for a moment, time itself seemed to pause. Two hearts, two souls, entwined in the quiet dawn, bound by something older than reason, older than fear. And then, as if fate itself could not allow them a moment of peace, a distant howl cut through the forest. Darien's ears twitched, his senses flaring. "Trouble," he muttered, his eyes narrowing. The wolf within him roared, muscles tensing as he scanned the tree line. It wasn't just any rival pack. It was one of the old clan's outcasts, bitter and cunning, seeking to challenge his rule. Allura stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. "We face it together," she said, her gaze unwavering, her courage mirroring his own. Darien's storm. Gray eyes softened, a rare vulnerability slipping through his stern exterior. "I have ruled for decades," he admitted, "and yet, for the first time, I feel incomplete without you at my side." The bond surged between them, threads of soul and wolf entwining. He realized then that the bond was more than mere attraction. It was destiny, woven through centuries of prophecy, longing, and unfulfilled desire. The outcasts drew closer, their eyes glowing like embers in the morning mist. Darian and Alara moved together, instinctively coordinated, a perfect blend of alpha strength and omega cunning. In the heat of battle, in the clash of snarling wolves and flashing claws, they found themselves side by side, their hands brushing, their hearts sinking. And in that moment, the line between danger and desire blurred completely. When the forest finally fell silent again, the outcasts retreating in defeat, Darian and Alara were left standing close, breaths ragged, bodies still tingling from the adrenaline and the electricity of proximity. He lowered his hand, tracing the line of her jaw with his fingers. "You are more than I expected," he whispered, voice rough. "Stronger, braver, and you belong to me." Alara's eyes shimmered, a mixture of triumph and surrender. "And I have waited my whole life to hear you say that," she whispered back. The morning sun broke fully over the horizon, illuminating the two figures standing amid the ruins of the forest battle. They were no longer just Alpha and Omega. They were mates, bound by fate, desire, and an unbreakable bond, ready to face whatever storms, both human and supernatural, awaited them. The journey was only beginning.